everybody. Nina is going to open up the floor. So, Nina, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to have this conversation here. I think I just want to do kind of a quick thing at the beginning here. When we say transphobia, I think a lot of people mix up the argument where transphobia is like the literal definition of like, oh, I'm afraid of these type of people. And I think that's like really unfair to use because transphobia is not like a phobia as defined like in like the clinical philosophy, like like an anxiety disorder or something like that. Its usage like parallels like xenophobia, like where xenophobia is like the fear or dislike of anything which is perceived as being like foreign or strange. It is an expression generally that is based on the perception that a conflict exists between like an in group and an out group, and it may manifest itself in a suspicion of one group's activities, you know, by members of the other group, all that type of stuff. A desire to eliminate the presence of the group, which is the target of suspicion, and fear of losing a either national, ethnic, racial identity. Again, that's what xenophobia is, but we're talking about that basic concept applies to transphobia. So hopefully we're not going to get mixed up in that language. There is a phrase that maybe we should be looking to adopt a little bit more called a transmia, because it avoids that mix up. I think it's pretty clear in my mind that transphobia or that not supporting somebody's gender identity, whether they are trans man or trans woman, is incredibly transphobic because it really supports a lot of like animosity towards that group. And it just seems like really clear that a lot of just rejecting the idea of even that community or like their validation is always going to be something that can, for one, cause violence. It can cause you know, mental health issues, like where you know, you don't feel like you should feel the way you feel like you're wrong or something like that, where I don't think that that's something that we should be supporting, or should ever not be supporting not feeling like that. I think there's a big crisis among like even like, you know, young like white men in this country where they feel like they don't really know where they're supposed to be at, which is causing like a lot of anxiety and stress. And I think that's a very easy bridge to go between like how it feels to completely feel like you're just like invalid. And then I'll leave it there for the time being.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Sorry, yeah, probably a redundant question. Anyways, hi everybody, I'm Stardust. I cover politics, drama, niche internet going-ons. I like to kind of keep my finger on the pulse of like more fringe communities and what they get up to. I also debate, which is why I'm here today. The debate topic is saying trans men aren't men transphobic? My answer to this is probably yes. Is saying trans men aren't male transphobic? In my opinion, not necessarily. So the difference between these two statements is that I'm referring to gender identity in the first one and sex in the second one. The difference between sex and gender, put very simply, is that sex is generally about whether you're born male or female and what reproductive organs you have and their functions. Gender refers to an individual's internal sense of their own gender and how they express that gender outwardly, and the societal and cultural roles that they fill as a result of that. I won't deny that gender roles and gender identity is something that originally came out of sex, but as society has progressed, we've come to a more complex understanding of our identities. My opponents in this debate are going to disagree with me, primarily because they don't believe in the concept of gender, at least from what I've seen. You know, gender is a social construct to them and serves no purpose. However, I would say in response to that there are plenty of social constructs that we respect and give importance to because they serve a purpose in society. One example is money. Money is a social construct. It facilitates the economic transactions and trade that people do every day. It serves as a medium of exchange, a unit of account, and a store of value, which helps in the efficient allocation of resources within a society. Additionally, gender identity isn't something that is exclusively used by trans people. To someone who doesn't really care about gender discourse and isn't really thinking about trans issues regularly, they still will be able to distinguish when someone is talking about being a man/male biologically and when somebody is telling them to be a man. Similarly, we see this happen when women try to teach each other about being a lady. My goal in this debate is not necessarily to convince my opponents that they have to believe in gender as a concept or agree with trans people and how they identify. My goal is to hopefully demonstrate why, even if you disagree with trans ideology, even if you don't believe in gender, that respecting people's pronouns and identity is a worthwhile thing to do. You don't need to agree with my stance on trans people. You don't even need to believe in gender, but I hope I can demonstrate why extending a basic amount of respect to someone who is otherwise suffering is the right thing to do.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your opening statement there, Stardust. We are going to kick it over to the other side of the aisle. Sorry about my mic earlier there, guys. Our side had up to 8 minutes to make their case. I've got my audio outputs reset here, so they'll stop doing all that nonsense. And without further ado, to the other side. Andrew, Rachel, the floor is all yours.
All right. I'll go first. So again, as is a trend at modern day debate, we won in the intro. We've already won the debate. So essentially, they conceded that this is a social construction and that it's perspective based. And so how can it be transphobic? It's just a matter of perspective from their specific viewpoint. But let me still go into the arguments because maybe there are some arguments that can be made that we can get into. There's a few different ways of looking at this issue of transphobia or supposed transphobia. Our position's actually rather simple. Transgenders don't even exist as an objective reality. Rather, this construction is simply parroted by leftists to try to explain why there are men out there who want to dress up and pretend they are women. They aren't women, they can't be women, and they'll never be women. To start with, this entire thing is a category error. Transgender is meaningless as it doesn't point to anything other than hard biological sexes pretending to be the opposite biological sex. That's it. That's all it points to. You can't even say it points to a mental illness anymore because of political driven changes to the classifications of what these mental illnesses are. If that is what is meant by it, even then I wouldn't have any issues, which actually brings us to the crux of this argument, which is that it's emotional blackmail. The left insists that if we do not lie to transgenders, that it's harmful to them. Of course, forgetting that many of us hold an ethical system where lying is against the 9th commandment of our Lord God, the commandment of bearing false witness. We are instructed not to break this commandment, and yet the suffering it causes us to do so is not taken into account. Isn't that Christ-phobic? The leftist ironically argues, no, it isn't, because the Christian identity is just made up. You can't, I'm not kidding. That's actually what they say. Nope, because the Christian identity is just made up. The trans identity is legit, though. It's insane. That's actually what they believe. To say that progressives are nutcases has always been an understatement. But on the topic of transphobia, they're even more unhinged than usual because at this point, they want us to believe a non-reality is reality and 1984 us into oblivion with propaganda by simply repeating over and over again this thing, which is obviously false. What's so bothersome about this is they know it's false. They all know it, yet they are caught in a social contagion which has become a mass delusion. A thing must be itself. It can't be what it is not. No amount of pretending a dog is a cat ontologically will ever make a dog a cat ever. All of you, everybody watching this, as in everybody knows what I'm saying is correct. They can rage about it. They can be angry about it. They can hate me for it, but you know I'm right. So to end, the answer is no. It's not any more transphobic to say a man is a man than it is to say that Nina engages in prostitution because she has an OnlyFans. It's just true. And with that, I'll yield my time to my wife.
All right, you got 8 minutes on the clock, a little bit more than 8 minutes. So if you want to eat them all up, they're all yours, Rachel.
All righty. Well, if you guys don't know me, I am Mrs. Andrew Wilson, aka bitter misogynist patriarchist on the internet. So to build off of what Andrew said, he's correct that we heard from both Stardust and Nina this emotional appeal that even if you disagree, even if you don't believe, in gender and you think it's a construction, the right thing to do to reduce harm is to respect people's chosen identities. Well, I would dispute that first and foremost. We can look back to the early days of feminism, going back to the late 1700s to the mid 19th century, when feminism was first proliferated as this Marxist idea by Flora Tristan, who was a diehard Marxist and the first one to combine feminism with Marxism. And she said they were inextricable. You could not have Marxism without feminism. I would say she was probably right about that. The whole idea of feminism is to say there is no real difference that's meaningful between men and women. There's no meaningful biological difference. This idea that it's a socialization that makes women think they like the color pink and sparkly things and playing with baby dolls, and that boys only like playing with trucks and punching each other for fun because they're socialized to be that way. The natural evolution of such an idea, the logical conclusion, if you follow that logic all the way through, is that if there is no meaningful biological distinction between male and female, that one can become the other. Why not, right? So we see this start to emerge in 1930s Germany. You see Magnus Hirschfeld, the psychologist, with his very suspicious gender clinic and, it was also his home and something of a halfway house for invalids and homeless people and people with all kinds of mental problems, to be the first person to pass out licenses for people to cross-dress. Yes, you might not know that it was actually illegal for people in Germany and also in America and most other Western countries in the 1930s to wear more than 3 articles of clothing that did not match their biological sex. So men were not allowed to walk around in dresses in public for the most part. There might be an exception if you are in a Shakespearean play and you have to play a woman or something. But generally, just to walk around in public dressed as the opposite gender was not allowed. Hirschfeld wanted to facilitate this mostly because he was doing creepy Frankenstein experiments on very desperately mentally ill people who could not support themselves. And so he began writing these permission slips, basically, that if the police were to pick up these people for cross-dressing publicly, they had to let them go because they were ill, they were sick, and they needed to do this. So to say that this is harm reducing to reinforce these ideas in people who have these ideas, I think is wrong. I think it's actually the opposite. And we can see this in the case of David Reamer. If you guys have ever heard of John Money, he was another psychologist in the 60s in the United States who took 2 twin boys who one had been mutilated at birth when they attempted to circumcise him, and the parents didn't know what to do with this child because he no longer had a penis. John Money, another proponent that gender is just a social construct, said, raise him like a girl. Never let him think he was ever not a girl. Raise him exactly like a girl. He's going to be better, happier that way. Well, David Reamer was not happier this way. By the time he was about 9 years old, he knew that he was not a girl. He didn't act like a girl. He didn't want to act like a girl. And he very tragically had a really difficult life and ended up self-deleting when he became an adult. But he publicly spoke about this and how harmful it was to him. So to say that reinforcing this gender ideology, especially on children, is harm reducing, I think we will see as the debate goes on. Andrew and I will show that not only is it harm reducing, it's more harmful than it is harm reducing. And so in that aspect, no, it's not transphobic at all to not support gender affirming care or gender ideology in general.
And
So yeah, I guess the first thing I would want to say is that I know that you guys can be hard of hearing sometimes, but I did specifically say in my opening statement that I do think that there are meaningful differences between the sexes, and that obviously gender is something that's come out of sex, right? Like I've heard Andrew even say that, gender is something that in other debates, that gender is something that was like kind of informed by sex at a certain point. but as somebody who's kept up with modern society, and I still maintain like the importance of etiquette and also understand the repercussions of not affirming somebody's identity, I tend to prefer to affirm people's identity.
So you think
and
that
I'm not saying,
we should lie to be polite, is what you're saying?
I mean, look, I don't. Here's an example, okay? I personally don't believe in a God, right? I'm not going to go up to you and say, hey, guess what? Your God isn't real. Fuck your God, all of that, right? Maybe other people do that shit, but that's not me. So yeah, there is a
Well, so if people
there's
who
a
do,
reason.
Just one
if
second.
people
Well,
people
if you
do
could
do
wrap it up.
that,
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I was going to ask
yeah,
if you
if
could wrap it up in 10
people
seconds. But
people do that, if people do
Uh-huh.
come after the Christian God, are they Christophobes? Is it Christophobia?
I mean,
when
I think
if
they're
they say that God's not
disrespectful,
real?
100%.
That's not
Yeah,
my
they're just
question.
Just
Is it
one second,
Yeah, so-
Stardust.
Christophobia?
I mean,
If
you can
they-
say it. Sure, why not? Fuck it.
Yeah, why not? So I would say that if somebody is saying like all Christians are this type of person and that we need to do this or whatever, and that their God isn't real and they're useless in society, things like that, like I would probably say, yeah,
You're
you know what,
loading
they
it.
are.
You're totally loading it. The question specifically is just this, okay?
Yeah.
If somebody does not
Mhm.
affirm that Christianity is true, are they Christophobic?
No,
No.
I don't think
then
so.
why isn't the true same for the transgender identity?
because I specifically told you that you don't have to agree with transgender ideology. Like you can choose to not believe in that.
That has nothing to do with the argument.
I don't think that not believing in it is transphobic.
That
I
has
think
nothing to do with the argument. If you make the statement that it's not Christophobia, it's not a phobia of Christianity, to say to them that to not affirm their identity is true. You just said that would not be Christophobia. How could it then be transphobia to refuse to affirm the identity
Does
is
it cause
true?
you material harm that other people don't believe in your religion?
Yes. But not only that, it's
Really?
actually one-to-one. It would be causing the same type of harm. What would be the distinction?
So
I think-
it doesn't
so-
devalue you as an individual.
I think it does. It's all about how I feel,
That's ridiculous.
Nina.
What do you mean?
It's how I feel.
Sure.
It's not about what's real, right?
Okay, well,
it's
if
it's
you're-
how it's perceived.
Okay, so specifically, I did also say that saying a trans man is not male is not transphobic, in my opinion. So, like, with
Then
that,
that's the
with-
end of the
Isn't
debate.
that the
Then
premise
that's
of
the
the
end
debate?
of the debate.
the difference is I specifically said saying trans men aren't men is probably transphobic.
Right,
Saying
that's the
trans
premise of
men
the debate.
aren't male is probably not. No trans person is going to say that, or most trans people are not going to try and argue with you that they've changed their sex successfully. They know they haven't,
I
right?
don't understand. Let me be very specific.
Mhm.
Are you claiming that if I do not affirm the identity, meaning lie, to a person you call a trans
Wait,
person,
no,
and
no.
tell
You
them,
saying
say, let me
identity.
finish.
Why is
Let
it
me
a
finish
lie?
the question,
Nina,
and then you
we'll-
can respond.
We'll
Nina.
give you a minute to
Okay.
respond on the other side.
Specifically, is it transphobic for me not to affirm a trans person's identity, or isn't it?
1 minute on the clock.
Why do you keep? Okay, well, this isn't going to be necessarily a response to your question, but I just don't like the
You're going to
framing
ask a question to
identity
answer
is
the
a
question.
lie.
Great. Perfect, Nina.
It's
No need to
the
answer the
premise of the
question.
debate.
Well, but
So
it's the
right.
Well, no,
If
it's
you,
not about a lie. It's just about like, why are you thinking that like it's like
Let
I mean,
me try
to use
one
your
more
own
time with the
example-
question.
no, to
The
use
question
your own
is it
you can identify
transphobic
as
for
a
me to not
Christian,
affirm
like,
the identity
One second,
of
let
a
him ask the
trans
question.
person, or isn't it?
oh my god.
is it transphobic to not affirm the identity of a trans person, or isn't it? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay,
I do.
why is that not true
Yes.
for the affirmation of the identity of a Christian, or the affirmation of an identity of somebody who claims that they're black when they're actually white, or any
Yeah, I was
number
just going to actually ask
different-
that.
You
I was
would to
gonna
some
say,
extent- wait,
if
hold on,
I
hold on, hold on.
tell-
You
if
would
I
someone
tell
have the-
you guys, sure.
Okay, go ahead.
If I tell you guys, you know what? I've done a lot of searching. I've been to a lot of therapy. I've done a lot of psychotherapy, and I believe that I'm black. Would you guys feel that it's harmful not to affirm that if I believe that's my identity?
I would say that, if you grew up around Black culture, if you feel like you identify with Black culture, like I don't know that I would call you black, but I would say, you know what, you seem to be really ingrained in black culture, right?
You wouldn't
like
affirm her identity, Stardust?
No, I don't believe in
Well,
I
transracial.
can't. Well,
Exactly.
but what kind of racist wouldn't affirm her identity, Stardust?
Yeah.
What
I
kind
mean,
of
look, I'm not
phobia?
going around saying that you guys aren't Christians, right? Like, I'm not
But
saying
if
that
you
you guys
did,
aren't.
you said it's not a
You
phobia.
don't. No, I didn't. No, that's not what
Yes,
it was.
my
You're changing
question- I
it. You're
specifically
changing your
asked
question.
this.
I think
Your
we need to
question.
do.
Wait a minute.
take a little
Your question was specifically if you say that my God isn't real, is that Christphobic? No, I don't think that's Christphobic. If I go around
But if
and
I say that you're not a
you
man,
guys
that's
are
hate-
not
oh.
Christians, you guys are not real Christians, then yes, possibly that could be.
Why would that be
Yeah.
Christphobic, but the alternative would not be?
Well,
what is the
because
criteria?
you're
What is
claiming
the
that you
junction
are.
breaker?
What you're claiming is you're claiming that your identity as a Christian. I am
Mhm.
denying your identity as a Christian.
Yeah,
Mhm.
just
Yeah,
through my
that's what it would
perception.
be.
Just through my perception, you're denying it. It doesn't have to
Yes.
map onto reality. It only has to map through the perception. So is
So,
it Christophobia
clarified.
through or not?
It's I would say it's anti-Christian. Yeah, it's probably anti-Christian to say that, hey, you know what, you say you're Christian, but I don't believe you.
So
Right.
then is it anti-white to say that race doesn't exist?
No, not really. We have things that are social constructs all the time, right?
So
But we like money doesn't really exist. We
it
made
does.
it.
It does. There are pieces of paper which reflect reality. That's the
Yeah, but
non-social
we
construction.
still made that up. We
Hang
still
on,
made
stop,
that up.
stop. The argument of what is the social construction portion of money and what is the physical portion of money, okay, that needs to be clarified. There is a physical portion of these things which does map onto objective reality. Then there's a social
Mhm.
construction aspect to it as well, like a school. That is still a building. The social construction aspect would be the school, right?
So yes, what I would say is like money. Yes, we have like hard money. We can look at it. It's a real thing, but that real thing still came out of the social construction
Right.
of
Well,
it.
what I'm trying to clarify is what is the social construction aspect versus what is the physical aspect of the actual thing that maps on to reality. In this
Well, the
particular case,
physical-
the only thing that maps on to reality is the biological sex. The thing that does not map on to reality is the social construction, which you call gender. You say that it's transphobic to not affirm the identity of a person, but cannot give me a threshold breaker for any other specific identity.
No, yeah, I have given you. I've said that, yeah, if I'm going around denying your identity as a Christian, then yeah, that would probably be bigoted.
So if you say
Yeah, can I jump in
a
here really
Satanist
quick?
isn't a real Christian,
Again, it's a little bit to repeat something Stardust did bring up, of course, but like, do you think that if I were to deny the fact, like, I am acting like I know more about your religious beliefs than you, and saying like, no, you're not actually Christian. Like, do you think that wouldn't be like a problem? Like, that's more analogous in my mind. Is somebody saying like, oh, you're not this, like, you're not this, you can't be this. Like, I don't know what you feel. Well, I don't know what your beliefs are. I don't know how your internal mindset is. Like, I
But
don't think that would
aren't
be
we
fair at
talking
all
about
for me.
biological reality?
I'm almost done.
Okay,
But
sure.
unfair for me to say when it comes to like the way that you interpret yourself and your identity as being a Christian. I don't think I should have the right to say like, I mean, not like to say it, but like,
well,
you
let's
know,
test
it's
and
kind
see
of a
if
piece
this
of
is
shit
actually.
move to do.
Let's test and see if that's true.
A piece of shit move if I
Yeah.
were to tell you, oh no, you're not Christian.
Let's
because,
find out. Let's
because
find out,
whatever, you're not
Nina.
Christian.
Let's find out if that's actually true, Nina. Okay, so here
What's
we'll
up?
just test this with a quick hypothetical. Let us assume that there was a woman who pretended her entire life to be black, but she wasn't actually black, right? And let's say that she had like some prominent Democrat position of some
What
kind.
is she like, classic in like blackface or what?
This fictitious woman who never existed, right? And then let's assume that it was found out that she was not actually African American in any way, shape, or
Okay.
form, and that she was just LARPing as being one. But she said that she had the lived experience of one, and so therefore should be considered a black person, regardless of the fact that she wasn't. And the entirety in mass of black people came out and said, no, you're not black. Are they all being racist by not accepting her identity, Nina?
Well, you asked a few different things there. Are you trying to seem more like it's like, okay,
I asked
so
one
I don't
thing.
know that person's position. I'm not going to assume that. Like, that just is not
Okay.
really something that I feel like is
He's
that
talking
important.
about Rachel Dolezal, who pretended to be black so she could get a position at the head of the NCAA,
Okay,
I
cool.
think,
People do
right?
dumb shit.
You know,
like,
and she got appointed to all these Black activist groups and organizations, and it turned out that she had been putting cornrows in and spray tanning herself and pretending to be of African American descent when she never was. She's like white as I am, right? And so she was fired from those jobs. She was completely ousted by the Black community. Does that make the Black community racist against her? Does it mean they are being phobic against her if they say, no, you cannot adopt our identity and claim it when that's not your biological reality?
well, it seems that that person was just doing that for some sort of like tangible benefit,
That
right?
doesn't answer the
Wait
question.
a minute. Wait a minute.
Well, I don't
Okay,
remember the
so
story
what
that well.
about
It's an old thing.
a trans man? So this the whole premise of the debate is it transphobic to say a trans man is not a real man? What if a trans man is pretending? How do you know that that person isn't pretending to be a man? Because let's say they believe in the patriarchy and that the patriarchy gives men unfair advantages like you think it does. Why should that? How do we know that woman isn't pretending to be a man so that she can get the benefits that our society gives to men?
That's what
How
I'm
would we
saying.
know?
Your example of racial doll assault is seemingly like it's already been proven that they were using that for the
It never really
reason.
was proven. It was assumed. But the contention
Okay.
from the Black community was just like, we don't care
You're not
what
black.
your
They said
we
you're
don't
not
care
black.
what your
That's what
yeah
they
we
said.
don't care what your motivations are. You cannot say you are biologically a Black person,
'Cause
just
you're
like
not.
a woman
Can I-
cannot say she's a man.
Answer to the question. No, don't
Were
interject.
they
Let her
saying
answer
they
for
were
once.
biologically Black? Like, what does that even mean?
We're
What does
asking the
biologically
question
Black
again.
mean?
I'm going to make
Black.
it as simple as I possibly can for
Yeah,
you, Nina.
but you can be.
Was
like,
it
what is
racist
biologically
for
Black?
for the Black community to say you're not Black? Was that racist of them?
Was it racist for them to just say that you're not Black? I mean,
Yeah.
like, what would,
Yeah, were
like,
they causing her harm by refusing to affirm her
I have
chosen
no idea.
identity?
You have no idea.
I don't know enough about this story that you're referring to.
Okay, in a fictitious
If I
story, I didn't
can-
even bring up Rachel
Dodge.
Dozell, but fictitiously, if it maps on the
Yeah.
same exact way in this hypothetical, okay, and they all does say every Black person in the United States, every single one of them says,
That's
no, you're
kinda
not
racist.
Black. Are they being racist for not affirming her identity, Nina?
I don't
That's-
believe in transracialism, like whatsoever.
Not asking you. I'm
and-
asking Nina to please answer my question.
Yeah, that's
Nina.
not really like I think we're a little bit too far off base
Answer
here. I
my
know you love
question,
using this
Nina.
argument.
Stop running.
Why would I answer this question? I don't think it applies.
You
What are
can't
talking
answer
about?
the
Like,
question,
you're
can you?
asking me to ask a metaphor of every single fucking Black person would agree with, like, calling
Yes,
her
I know
not
hypotheticals are
Black.
designed to
I
test
don't
logic.
understand
They're
why,
really
like,
hard.
what you're trying to imply that every single Black person has the exact same opinion.
Yes, that's the. Well, Nina, what did you have for breakfast this morning?
I don't think that it's
What?
racist.
How would
I
you
don't think
how would you
that's
feel
racist.
this morning if you never had breakfast, Nina? How would you feel?
I don't think it's racist. Because I think that I do think that one you kind of have to work at kind of being part of that identity, and that's probably going to be something that Nina and I kind of disagree on. I am a little bit more on the trans med side. I do think that generally somebody can't just say that there's something and automatically they become that thing. We generally, though, when we see somebody say that there's something, they work towards being that thing. And so when a trans person is saying that, like a man is saying that they are a woman, then generally we hope to see that they're working towards that. They're working to present that way. They're working to
yourself.
second
You
there,
just
Rachel.
completely
Why?
screwed
No, wait,
yourself
Just one
wait
second,
by
a minute.
Rachel.
Wait a
saying
We'll
minute.
wrap
Let me
up the
finish.
point. We'll
Let me
kick it over.
finish. Let me finish. When a woman, when a man, so okay, here, let me put this out here, okay? If I'm going by your definition of what a man and a woman is, right? And you guys are just basing that completely in biology, right? If you are talking about men and women from a biological standpoint, and for you, men and women is same as male and female, then you know what? Trans men are not men. I'll agree with you on that, right? If that's what your definition is. But then what's wrong with a woman trying to present herself as a man and live life as a man?
I'll tell you, it's emotional hostage taking to have the requirement of Christians and tell Christians that if you do not affirm the identity of us and thus break your commandment of your God, that I'm going to go and terminate myself. That's emotional. Yeah, no, that's bullshit. They are saying that. And it's emotional hostage taking to say that without these affirmations, they're going to hurt themselves and that we must give them these affirmations and lie to them, even though we are commanded not to do so. How do we reconcile
you ever tell,
that?
like, white lies to people to be polite?
So lie to them.
Do you practice a thing called being polite?
Yes, of course. I try to be polite.
Okay. So sometimes
you know
politeness
what the distinction
does
is between
include
bearing false.
We're going to let Stardust wrap up her thought. I don't want to mute you, but
sometimes being polite does require the admittance of things, right? If somebody says, hey, you run into somebody, right? And they, the shirt that they're wearing looks really fucking bad on them. Sorry, excuse my language. It looks really bad on them, right? But you're just having a normal conversation. It's not really like polite of me to say, hey, I hate your shirt. It makes you look like garbage, right?
Is it polite to let them go into the bathroom of their choosing, the locker room of their choosing, and not lie to them? Do I need to lie to them and pretend that they're a woman so that they can go take a shower in the men's room?
Well, if it's Buck Angel, do you know who Buck Angel is?
No, that's not my question. Right?
If it's
don't
Buck
ask me
no,
a question,
asking.
Answer mine. I've answered every question you've asked me. Answer my question.
It depends, right?
Depends.
The reason why I'm bringing
lie.
The reason why I'm bringing up Buck Angel is because Buck Angel is biologically, as what you guys would say, a woman, right? Biologically a woman,
an ugly woman,
presents completely as a man.
Yeah,
completely
there's always been freaks at the circus, women who have beards and all kinds of things, Stardust.
Right, but it wouldn't make
Susan
any
B.
sense.
Anthony. I mean,
it wouldn't,
go look at a picture of Susan B. Anthony and tell me that
wouldn't make any sense.
What the fuck's wrong with you?
It wouldn't make any sense for somebody like Buck Angel, who looks completely like a man, to be in a woman's bathroom. I would be uncomfortable with that. I'm not looking at that person's genitalia.
Which is why, Stardust, we used to have a standard inside of the United States where you couldn't look like that. It was illegal to be a woman and look like that under decency law, Stardust. And then there's no problem, Stardust.
Yeah. There you go.
I don't understand what is wrong.
And you think that was a good? Wait,
not only was it good,
everyone's talking. All right, you're muted for the audience right now. So everyone's talking all at once, so you guys are muted to the audience. So we're going to hand it back over to Nina, but this might be a good time to ask everybody some clarifying questions. I know in the aftermath of these debates, sometimes people are like, hey, we didn't get definitions, and that sometimes can make things difficult for people. So I'm going to take you all off mute, and I'm going to go around the panel here if you can, and just give your definition for what it means to you, trans. How do you define that? So we'll start off with you, Andrew, and go to Rachel for like a minute, and then we'll continue with the discussion with that clarification.
Transgenderism is it's a category error. That's how I define it. It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. It's a category error.
Okay.
Well, it does mean something. What does that mean?
Well, we're going to go around the panel here. So,
sure.
And we're going to try to keep the crosstalk to a minimum because I don't want to have to start muting people because it's not fun. It's not fun when I have to start muting people because I get indiscriminate with it. So, Rachel, it's the floor is yours to define trans.
Yeah, I would second what Andrew said, and I would say that the idea that somebody can be transgender is a category error, which began with the idea that there's no meaningful distinction between male and female other than just genitals. That other than that, we are exactly the same. We are just interchangeable widgets. And from that, we got to this idea that therefore we can switch and swap and choose, what gender we are based on this concept. So no, I would agree with Andrew that it's not a thing, essentially.
Over to you, Nina.
If we're just doing the direct definition, I'd be just like a transgender person. It just seems like somebody who gender identity or expression doesn't correspond with the sex that they were assigned at birth. I don't think it's a really crazy concept. I think it's probably pretty understandable in a very easy way personally, but I don't want to go into too much on that.
All right, and over to you, Stardust, and then we'll kick it back into open discussion with that clarification.
Yeah, so for me, a trans person is usually somebody who's born as one sex, whose experience internally doesn't align with that sex. And so what they try to do is they try to do everything in their power to present as the other sex and to fall into the gender roles and function within society of the gender roles that came out of the opposite sex. That's generally what I would say. So.
Excellent. Well, we'll kick it back in open discussion. I'm going to do my dues to James because I failed him earlier to remind everybody that tickets for the DebateCon are linked in our description along with our crowdfund on the side. You won't want to miss this epic live event. I know if you're seeing double on the screen right now, that's because Andrew is double feature tonight. Look at that. It's like Rocky Horror Picture Show. You're a double feature. All right. So we're going to kick it back into the open discussion. We got another 30 minutes here. So let's try to reset the tone and we'll
Okay.
continue.
I have a question. So let's say that I give to you that trans women are men, right? The next question would be, what is your prescription for what trans women should do? Should they grow beards and get wives and impregnate them?
No,
even though they have this illness?
Nope. The prescription is that we need to have decency laws and deal with mentally ill people who refuse to follow decency laws like we would deal with every other mentally ill person and give them treatment immediately. But under decency laws, you absolutely should not be able to walk around in the streets dressed up like a female and pretend that you're a female when you're clearly not and have the expectation that people lie to you or else you're going to self-delete. That's insanity.
So,
if I could jump in really quick.
Quick thoughts there, Rachel.
I need to respond.
Yeah,
I need to respond to that.
Just hold your thought because Rachel wanted to add to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say you're appealing to people's emotions. You're appealing to politeness, to manners, to etiquette. What about the fact that I feel personally deeply insulted by men, biological males, who walk around dressed in woman face in a costume that demeans my personal experience as a woman, having given birth to 5 children, that I feel insulted, that I am being emotionally blackmailed into affirming this person's either their delusions or for whatever reasoning. I understand some people do have emotional problems that lead them to want to be seen as a woman. I understand that. I think there are definitely people who exploit this. We see males who enter into female sports and kick the absolute crap out of women in female sports when they were terrible at male sports. I don't know what their motivations are. I don't care because I am a biological female. So how can you appeal to emotion and decency and etiquette and politeness and then turn around and suggest to me, an actual woman, that I must entertain some man? Remember the It's Ma'am guy? The 6-foot-tall man who says he's a woman. I'm supposed to say, "Oh yes, you're a beautiful lady."
You have.
I need to respond to Andrew.
Yeah, well,
his answer.
There's Stardust.
Okay, his answer to my question was that we need to provide these people with treatment for their illness, right? We need to get them treatment. Is that correct?
Just the ones that are ill, yes.
Yeah, the ones that are ill. So if that is the case, and we look at what the treatment for their illness is, and generally people say that gender affirming care is the treatment for their illness, then what are we supposed to do?
If the treatment for your illness, societal wide, the prescription is worse on the society than the treatment of your illness, then under your own purview for ethics, you would have to default with the non-treatment option. If the only way, by the way, that you could affirm the care of these people is to lie to them and tell them there's something that they are not, then can you answer for me a question, Stardust, as to why it is that teenage suicide rates in 1940 were 3 times lower than they are right now? And we do have data on what was considered transgender then. And they were not self-deleting nearly at the rates they are now, as they have been increasing. Can you explain that to me?
Well, do we know that that's a result of there being more people altogether?
This would be per capita, Stardust.
It's a percentage.
Per capita.
It's a percentage. So if this percentage of the population.
So I'm not going to deny that, one, I don't agree with lying to people, right? Nobody is saying that these people are biologically women. I've never said that they're biologically women, right? All I am saying is that they function within society under the woman kind of role, right? They function as women, they act as women,
role?
they you know, you said it yourself. There are meaningful differences between the sexes, right?
Yes, they're meaningful
yes,
biological
females.
differences.
That's not makeup and dresses and
No, it's
hairdos.
not. Females and males do gravitate towards different things. They do. But sometimes there are going to be males who gravitate to things that are typically female and who express themselves in a female way, who function within society as females would. What is wrong with that?
What's wrong with bringing back decency laws like we had before, and then we don't have any of the
Do
debate
you
over
actually want an
bathroom?
answer to that?
I am answering it. The answer to this
No,
question is
that was a
actually
question.
it's in the question. The answer is very simple. We need to bring back the decency laws, which have a requirement and a set standard for how people are allowed to walk around inside of society. And if you're a male, you should not be allowed to dress up as a female, walk around society, or vice versa.
What would you define as doing that?
Stop talking and let me finish. So anyway, that's what we need to do, is focus on that. We had that standard before. These problems did not exist before, nor was the suicidality anywhere near as high as it is right now for this particular
and you know
group.
that. Yeah, can we go back a little bit? You said a category error. I was still wanting to get an answer. What does that mean? I've never heard that term before.
You don't know what a category error is? Like,
No, I'm asking
honestly,
you.
I want you to be honest with me.
I've never heard it
do you
before.
not?
No.
You've never heard category
I mean, are you
error.
saying literally?
Yeah,
Just
literally.
explain it to me.
Literally a category error.
Literally, yes, it's literally a
So,
category error.
I
It
can
would-
give you a
it
definition if
means-
you'd like. I just looked it up,
Right.
so I had
Sure,
the
go
exact
ahead.
one. A
Sure.
category mistake or category error, categorical mistake or mistake of category is a semantic or ontological error in which things belong to a particular category are presented as if they belong to a different category, or alternatively, just make sure I'm unmuted. Or alternatively, a property is ascribed to a thing that could not possibly have a property. So that is the long form of the category error.
Okay, so in what I don't really feel like that itself is an explanation for how
Yeah,
you're using
it-
it.
Men and
It
women are
means-
ontologically different. Men and
It
women are
means this
ontologically
white claw.
different.
This white claw is not a planet. That's what
Yeah.
it means.
That would be a category error. Poor Nina.
No, but you're not really connecting that, because like obviously you just admitted right there that it applies to
Okay,
a lot
well,
of
here, Nina,
broad
let me
concepts or
help you
groups.
out with the
So which-
category error.
with the context of this conversation, can you explain what you mean with that?
I already did. It's already been explained to you. There's
You-
there is no ontological set base for what is transgender. I'll give you an example. Nina, define woman.
Sorry?
Define woman.
No, I thought you were explaining stuff.
I
Or you were just
am.
gonna
I'm
ask me
going to give you an
questions, but that's not
example
really
of
the
how
same
this
thing.
works.
Sure.
I just explained. Define
Okay.
woman for me.
I would define it as a gender prescription, or not prescription. Sorry, wrong wording. A gendered term that implies that you generally subscribe to a lot of, social. I mean, obviously, I'm like more like general, but anyways, a lot of social values and like why do I keep reading the word? What is it the when you're supposed to fulfill a social?
You know the
social roles.
thing.
I'm sorry. I just like struggled with the words there. Sorry. Like social roles, social values, social expectations. That was the other one I was thinking of. I'm sorry. That was just like completely losing my words there. Social expectations that generally align with the female sex.
Can anybody be that thing?
Can anybody be that thing? Yeah.
Well, then it doesn't point to any information about the thing, Nina.
Okay.
Because it's a
I mean, you could
category
say that
error.
for, like,
It's a
literally
category
language.
error.
Okay,
If
but
I
you're
use
just saying
go-
a category. That's not really an argument. You're just saying it's a category, or it doesn't make.
No, a
isn't an
category
argument.
error is a literal argument.
It's a literal argument.
Literally.
Okay, if you're gonna be like literal, I'm saying in this conversation, just saying something is a category error is not your argument for the
It
conversation.
is
It
correct?
is my
actually our
argument.
argument.
Yes.
Oh, why'd you
Okay,
start off with
if
that?
I
And could've looked it
can,
up.
if I grant again, we can go back to what I was saying. If I grant you that this is a classification error, and that and you know what, trans women are really men, and you said that your solution to this is that they need to seek help. They need to get treatment for their illness. Now, I said, what if that treatment for that illness is to affirm their gender identity? You said we need to bring back blasphemy laws. Well, what if
I
people
didn't say
don't?
anything about
Or
blasphemy laws.
not blasphemy. Sorry, decency. I mixed up the word. We bring back decency laws. What if, like, how does decency laws work with people who in their head, no matter what, believe that they align
I can
with
explain.
the gender roles, and also what happens to those people who don't follow those decency laws?
Sure. So it's the same thing as people who, like, my mother was schizophrenic when I was young and believed she was a fish. I did not affirm her identity as a fish. I took her to the hospital. Okay. And so it's not incumbent upon Andrew or I to make sure that these people feel better or get better or start believing that they are the sex they were born. We wish them the best. We hope that for them. We want that for them. But that's number one, that's not going to happen if you keep affirming this nonsense that's absolutely just not true. And number two, even if those people are off dealing with that, getting treatment, first of all, I don't know if I don't know if I would send them to psychologists these days, because these are the main people that are reinforcing the nonsense. But regardless of how they deal with it, it is not incumbent upon the rest of society to affirm or deal with their issues. Just like if people believe they've been abducted by aliens, all of society shouldn't be pressured to reinforce that belief for them, even if it makes them feel better.
Sure. So let's say we don't affirm their identities, but we still have people who walk around, very feminine men who look like women, right? I don't see, even if, you know what, let's say you don't affirm their identity, you don't say that they're women. We just call them feminine men, right? What is wrong with them even just walking around? Because you want decency laws, right?
So the question which you're asking, which is off of the topic, would it be then, Stardust, under this criteria, transphobic for us not to affirm that a male to female transgender is not a female, but is a male? Is that still transphobic in your brain?
Well,
or isn't it?
I already explained to you, if your definition of man is biological, then no, it wouldn't be if you're referring to them biologically.
And that's the end of the debate.
I already said that though. I said that like way before, right?
Now let me help you with your end.
This is not groundbreaking.
Yeah.
What
So
I'm
let me help
asking
you with your end.
What I'm asking you
No,
is,
hang
if
on.
you did
Just
not
one
answer
second,
my
Andrew.
question.
Just hold your thought.
You didn't answer
Go
my
ahead.
question.
Ask the question.
My
Ask the question.
question is, if there are feminine men who look like women who are walking around and living their life, and you say you want to bring back decency laws, what happens to them?
What do you mean? What happens to them? They have to follow the law like everybody else.
Okay, and what if they don't?
Then there's repercussions. Usually they get arrested.
So
That's what used to happen
you just
to
don't
them.
even want them to exist, right?
No, they
it's
can
not.
exist.
Why couldn't they exist?
They just can't
Because
wear a
they're
dress
not allowed
out
to
in
walk
public.
around.
No, they can walk
Right.
around in pants dressed like a man. They might be effeminate, maybe they can't help that, but that doesn't mean we have to tolerate them wearing dresses
They
and
look like a
wigs
woman.
and tutus and acting like a lady in public in front of everyone.
Okay, what if they're men who look like women, and when they wear men's clothes, they
Then that
still
would
look
be
like
illegal.
women wearing. Wait a minute.
Well,
When they
okay.
wait, let me finish. Let me finish. When they wear men's clothes, they just look like women wearing men's clothes.
That's fine.
Yeah. What do you want to say about that? That wouldn't be against the law,
They're-
then, Stardust.
Like I said,
What
Then
about
there's nothing
men?
wrong with
Guys,
feminine men, right?
Google-
There's nothing wrong with
Google-
feminine
Let's let
men.
Rachel in here for a second.
Nobody
everybody.
said
Google a
anything about
picture.
feminine men. Those are men.
Well, I asked you like 20 times before you answered the actual question. Yeah.
Over to Rachel, guys.
Google
because
a
the
picture.
question's irrelevant. It's
Andrew.
literally
No, the
baked
question's
in.
not. You're talking about classification error. So I am solving your classification error and asking you, after the classification error is solved, what happens?
That's what happens.
I'm explaining. So Google a picture right now of Susan B. Anthony. She looked like a man, okay? Her facial features, she was just very masculine looking. There's always been people like that. Remember the old Saturday Night Live skit, It's Pat? Right? There's always been people
No.
that it's a little ambiguous, maybe there's masculine looking women, there's feminine looking men. But whatever your biological sex is, when you're out, if you're in your bedroom and you're dressing in ladies' panties, I guess I won't know about it. But in public, because of decency laws, if you're a male dress and act like a male to a reasonable degree.
How are you
I'm-
going to enforce that, especially
Sure,
with unisex
I will
clothing?
explain.
The
Sure,
same way that we
so-
would enforce it right now
Yeah,
if you were
yes.
walking around with no shirt on.
Right. No
Stardust,
shirt, no
should
shoes,
you
I don't
be-
think men
no
should
shirt,
be
no
allowed to
Hold
wear.
on there.
Should you
I don't
be
think men
able
should be
to-
allowed to walk around shirtless
Should
either.
you
I
be
hate
able?
seeing men.
Should you be able to
Yeah.
walk around with no clothes on out in public or not?
Let's get Nina
Um,
back in here, guys.
Probably not in
Why?
in like public areas.
Why?
Because it's kind of like you're kind of like imposing your nudity on other people, and I
Oh,
don't think that's
okay.
really polite. Yeah.
So basically, you wouldn't do it because you think that the imposition on society is such and the offense level would be such that they probably shouldn't do it, which is exactly what's going
Well,
on right this
they-
second with transgender
No, I don't
people.
think so. I don't think
that
that's-
the
I don't think it's
imposition on
analogous.
society is such that
It's not
we
analogous
demand
whatsoever.
that there be decency
Stardust.
laws, just like with your nudity, Stardust.